and welcome to this week's episode of VMware Partnership Perspectives. I'm Kathleen Tandy, Vice President of Global Partner and Alliances Marketing here at VMware, and I'm pleased to bring you the stories and trends from VMware industry analysts, partners, and executives. This week, I'm joined by Joyce Mullen, President for North America at Insight, a leading global technology provider focusing on cloud and data center transformation, connected workforce, and digital innovation. Together, we discussed how last year's pandemic continues to accelerate digital transformation and how an integrated approach to hardware, software, and managed services is critical to delivering true value and better customer experiences. Let's listen now. So Joyce, welcome to Partnership Perspectives. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. It's really terrific to be here.
So let's get our conversation started today with your relatively new role at Insight compared to other roles you've had in your career and Insight, the company. I understand you are the president for North America for Insight, and in that role, you lead a team of over 8,700 professionals who are delivering Insight's innovative solutions to customers. For those who may not be familiar with Insight, could you tell folks a little bit about the company, what sets Insight apart in the market, and what's the scope of your role as president for North America?
Sure. So Insight is a 30-year-old partner in this business and has deep roots in the traditional VAR environment, but over the past 10, 12 years has really been through acquisition and also through some intrinsic growth initiatives, really developed into a true provider of end-to-end digital transformation solutions, which is super cool. That is something that was really attractive to me as I made a decision to join Insight, because the portfolio and the value that we can help create for our clients is broader than many of the partners that I had the opportunity to work with as the leader of the channel at Dell. And the purpose at Insight, which is also quite ingrained in the organization, is all around building really meaningful connections to help our clients' businesses run smarter. What I love about technology is that it changes so fast, and there's so many different opportunities for us to help figure out how to create value for clients. But it's also pretty darn complicated. So you got to have the right people, you got to have the right products, you got to have the right software, you got to have the right solutions, and Insight is differentiated in terms of that portfolio. And then the final thing that's different about Insight is the culture. The culture is really built on a very strong foundation. We call it hunger, heart, and harmony. Those are our three critical values, and everybody at Insight understands those. They guide how we work. We reinforce them through recognition systems, and it really makes it quite a special place. So as the leader of North America, I get to make sure we're doing everything we can to deliver our really amazing value to as many clients as possible in North America. I get to work with these 8,700 professionals, many of whom are really technical and really expert in their field. And together we can hopefully help our clients' businesses run a whole lot smarter.
Well, that's a great introduction. I particularly love the three H's, hunger, heart, and harmony. I hope we can dig into that a little bit more later, because I really want to know what led to choosing those three words. But first, you mentioned value several times already in your answer around what set Insights apart. And, interestingly enough, so Insight has been a long-standing VMware partner. And as such, we were thrilled to recognize you in 2021 as the VMware winner of our Partner Value Award. Speaking exactly that. So first of all, congratulations to you and the team at Insight. Just touching a little bit on that, you've already said that value is kind of intrinsic to what sets Insight apart. How do you feel that Insight's ability to deliver value has not only allowed you to help achieve this recognition, but how is that focus helping you work to help your customers accelerate their digital transformations?
First of all, thank you very much for that really tremendous recognition. We're very honored to have won the Partner Value Award, and we hope we can make you all proud this year and do the same thing again. It all really comes down to helping clients figure out what kind of outcomes they're looking for and what's the digital transformation required in order to get there. And those companies are all different shapes and sizes. And we are really proud that we get to bring a level of expertise and technical skills, plus a ton of experience working with many clients around the world to sort of learn from what's worked really well, figure out those best practices, implement those again where it's appropriate, and then also learn from the failures too. But in this middle pandemic, we've seen a real sort of acceleration like VMware has and everybody else has in this space. And the way we've structured this is really around kind of the outcome. So if clients are looking for a really modern workplace that allows their teammates to perform anywhere and do anything, that is a pretty complicated change. And so obviously we all had to figure out how to do that. And there's change management that goes along with that. But that is obviously something we're going to be working with for a very long time. We had some pretty great capabilities around infrastructure and IT modernization for hybrid and multi-cloud environments. But then we kept listening and hearing, boy, you got to figure out how to modernize applications. So we bought a couple companies that really were terrific at application innovation. Ditto with, now that you were collecting all this data, how do we improve the quality of the analytics? And then leverage AI, of course. And so we bought some capabilities around that. And that's true of cybersecurity. That's true of intelligent edge, which I think is a really tremendous opportunity. And all the while, we sort of back that up with really solid supply chain capabilities. Because in order for these solutions to work, you got to have hardware, you got to have software, you got to have services, and you got to put them all together in a way that makes a ton of sense for the client.
That makes sense. All of those things working together to provide clearly an integrated platform for Insight to deliver true value to your customers. You mentioned how you've seen I'm going to call it the ongoing pandemic that we all keep coping with. Better. But it truly is absolutely accelerating this digital transformation. We've seen companies who've all been reluctant to analyzing what they were going to be doing, just being forced to jump off the cliff and forced to dive into the water. As customers have made those shifts, as it's accelerating, as they've been forced to shift to truly a hybrid work model, in some cases overnight, how has Insight had to change and evolve its business to keep pace with that demand, to respond to that acceleration? You were talking about a solid, robust set of offerings around infrastructure and multi-cloud, about investing in modern apps, around quality of analytics. Has all of that been accelerated with Insight over the last 18 months? Have you seen the same trends within Insight as you've seen with your customers?
Absolutely. Absolutely, we have. And you know what I think is really intriguing is, and this is why I love this industry so much. So not only is everybody interested, every company out there is interested in trying to figure out how to make sure that they've got modern infrastructure, make sure that they've got a secure environment, which is super hard right now, make sure that they're clear on what their options are to deliver more value to their own customers. We have the opportunities and the choices have just exploded. I mean, if you think about 10 years ago, if you needed compute, you bought a server. And then VMware, of course, changed the world. I guess it was probably more than 10 years ago around kind of how you could use servers differently. And now we have public cloud offers, private cloud offers, hybrid cloud offers. We have different kinds of chips. We have different kinds of servers. We have different portfolio solutions that can deliver different outcomes or the same outcomes. So the landscape is really, really challenging. And honestly, I think that's where we need to take our responsibilities very seriously, because we have to translate all of the sort of technical options into solutions that are actually going to deliver the improved efficiency or the better customer experience that our clients are looking for. And that is a pretty hefty responsibility. We take Pat Gelsinger and I actually used this in our mastery event, which is our sort of our technical training session 2 weeks ago. I used the same analogy, but he talked a couple of years ago when he was the leader of VMware about how we needed to be porters for our customers. And he was using the Kilimanjaro analogy. And I thought that was so powerful. And so I used it again, the same exact thing. And we have to be guides for our customers. In order to be an effective guide, you have to know the landscape better than anybody. And you have to understand which routes you should use in order to get to the outcomes or the top of the mountain. And you got to be really disciplined, and you can't let people do whatever they want while they're climbing Kilimanjaro. So you have to make sure you're really disciplined about clarifying the options and the impact of those options. And then you got to be 100% committed to the client's success. That's what we're about. And that is, again, built on this cultural foundation, which is really, really strong at Insight.
It sounds like it really boils down to what you mentioned before, which is all delivering outcomes. And it's outcomes that are rooted in what is relevant for the customer and ways that help them harness the amazing range of technology, which is expanding every day as we continue to innovate and grow and help them navigate that complexity. I'd love to learn more a little bit about hunger, heart, and harmony, because you brought up culture again. Frankly, because those three H's in those words aren't words you typically hear in technology companies today, particularly I have hunger, although I'm sure that at one point there were a lot of snacks through Insight and everyone enjoyed that together today. But can you share a little bit about what hunger, heart, and harmony mean for Insight and how they unify Insight's culture in delivering those amazing outcomes for your customers?
Basically, hunger is all about being completely dissatisfied with the status quo and figuring out how to do more and do it better and deliver results for our clients. So it starts with being obsessed with our clients. It starts with being obsessed with their success and getting them to the top of the mountain, like we talked about. And it is sort of being willing to go above and beyond kind of your normal job to make sure we deliver the value that our clients need and the results for those clients, which obviously will translate into results for Insight. Heart is all about understanding and being empathetic and understanding kind of the impact you have on both your clients and your partners and also each other, teammates. So it's really about managing kind of that head and heart piece. And that is how we inspire our teams. That is how we inspire our partners to want to work with us more, is how we manage our participation in our communities. I love that balance with hunger. And then harmony is really meant to say, Ken Lemnick, our CEO, likes to talk about messy meetings. And harmony is really about figuring out how to get every diverse perspective on a topic in the room heard and listened to and disagreeing in an effective way. I would say in a very deliberate way, but also making sure we get to the very best answers. And then once we've done all that disagreement and we've gone through all those disagreements and we've had the conversations and we've looked at both ends of the spectrum and figured out what solution we're going to go with, then we all go out, we row in the same direction and we behave, because if we're all driving towards those same goals, we're going to be much more impactful and helpful.
That's great. On harmony, I love how it's not just about getting everybody rowing in the same direction, but how you started with it's at first getting those diverse perspectives to be able to get to the right answer. I think a lot of people jump to the output of harmony, but they miss that important first step.
By the way, this is something that I said I think Insight does a really good job at. It's sort of reinforcing these values. And by the way, it can be misinterpreted, right? Hey, you're not being very harmonious if you disagree. Well, that is not at all what we mean by harmony.
That's great. I appreciate that clarification. Joyce, you were with Dell for 21 years. I think you mentioned that in the opening before joining Insight last year. That's a pretty big change going from the vendor side of the equation to the partner side. How did your time at Dell prepare you for your current role at Insight? I have a feeling there must be something related to supply chain in there. And what has surprised you the most about moving from the vendor side of the relationship to the partner side of the relationship?
So I had a fabulous set of opportunities at Dell, more than 2 decades. It feels like the way I like to talk about that is in quarters, because that's how it felt. So that's a lot. And I loved it. And so my most recent position, but I had so many different jobs. I think I had like 15 or 17 jobs during my time at Dell. So I got to do all sorts of things, running services, I ran our supply chain for our service parts, and I ran sales operations a couple times. I ran our software and peripherals business. I ran on alliances, a strategy, all sorts of stuff. So I got all kinds of different, experiences, and I got to learn with some of the very best. Michael Dell is an awesome leader and an incredible technologist and a great person. We had a lot of great and really talented teammates at Dell. And so my most recent roles, though, probably were the ones that helped me prepare most. So as the leader of the global channel at Dell, I got the chance to work with 170,000 partners, and many of whom are terrific. And it was a really great learning opportunity to figure out how the channel works. I'd had a couple of different jobs where I worked with the channel very closely, but actually leading the channel was a great experience. So all around the world, and could definitely see sort of how partners were thinking about expanding and digitally transforming themselves, as you mentioned. And certainly Insight's doing that as well. So I think it gave me a pretty good view of how partners add value, how they service clients, what makes a great partner, what kind of portfolios are going to be really important, not for the last 10 years, but for the next 10 years. And so I feel like it gave me a really good landscape. I also ran our embedded and OEM business, which has a substantial piece of that business. And that also had a very significant partner component in terms of how Dell goes to market in that important space, which is going to be critical as intelligent edge grows. So I felt like I got a great perspective and I could see what worked well. I could see what didn't work well. And it gave me some really good insights into, no pun intended, into kind of the changes we can make at Insight to build out a world-class sales organization, build out world-class innovative modern solutions that are most valuable to clients, and make sure that we deliver an exceptional client experience with every single interaction.
So what has surprised you the most about being on the partner side that's different than, or maybe your role so well prepared there haven't been any surprises, but being from a partner side versus the vendor side, I'm just curious as if there is any big realizations that you've had from really truly being on another side of the relationship and side of the table.
I think I intellectually knew this, but it is definitely different when you're doing it. Insight's a Fortune 500 company. We're 360, correct me if I'm wrong. I think something like that. Pretty big company, but much smaller than Dell, I would say. And so Dell is in a position where they can make the market in some cases. So it's a little bit different dynamic. There's like the power of Dell as an OEM is much different from Insight as a partner to OEM. So I knew that, of course, but seeing that play out as demand changes, how you can shape demand. We have a very different capability at Insight to shape demand than Dell has or the OEMs have. I also just have so much to learn about how partners make money. I mean, sort of getting under the covers and understanding kind of the financial impacts of decisions that OEMs make, for example, around rebate programs or promotional activity or MDF activity is quite impactful. I knew it was impactful sitting on the other side, but it's really real if you're at the partner. And then it's just been fabulous to learn so much about so many other terrific OEMs out there and the value that they can bring to clients. So I've really enjoyed learning in a different way about all the OEMs who are not Dell. And obviously many of them are competitors to Dell, but I had a very different perspective sitting at Dell of kind of the capabilities of other OEMs. And so that's been really fun.
That's great. I can hear in your voice, Joyce, your just continued enthusiasm to learn, to grow, to explore this constantly challenging market. As I look at your career, you started shortly out of graduate school with Cummins Engine, right? A hardcore manufacturing organization, very technology driven in its own way. That was kind of phase one. And then Dell for phase two, and now Insight for phase three. As you look at those changes in that progression, all associated with technology in different ways over that period of time, I won't count the number of years. As you look at that, what do you think are the top biggest business shifts and biggest drivers that have really shaped how companies have used it over the course of your career? And then I'm going to ask you about what you see as kind of the biggest drivers going forward.
When I think about kind of my start of my career at a very sort of manufacturing oriented company like Cummins, which is also fabulous, by the way, I had a lot of great opportunities there. This notion of what data and technology can do in the business units to drive improved efficiency, to drive improved customer experience, to drive more innovation in processes, to drive safer environments, to drive more compliance or whatever the business outcomes are, has really changed. And that's changed because technology is more affordable, its processing speeds are faster, it's easier to get answers fast, and we've figured out how to make the edge more intelligent. And I think that has had a big impact on how companies have become software companies. Almost every manufacturer is now thinking about hiring software engineers. That's crazy to me. And it's very different from the Cummins engine company that I knew more than 22 years ago. That has driven a lot of the change. And then if you go forward, I think it's accelerated more of the same. I mean, it's basically, we have just begun to scratch the surface of intelligent edge. I think we've just begun to think about business units deploying technology to drive their business, not in an ancillary way, but very centrally. The opportunities for a smarter edge in every industry on the planet is really breathtaking.
So, on the topic of the edge or smarter edge, I understand that this is a particular focus place for Insight, more so than other partners who I know who aren't particularly focused on this area. Can you tell us a little bit more how Insight is looking at exploring or investing in this area? Don't disclose any secrets, but to the point that you can, how Insight is choosing to approach this part of the market and the type of value that you believe that you guys can bring to your customers from the perspective of those outcomes to help drive their business forward.
So I think what we've all done for a little while around the intelligent edge, and it was IoT a couple of years ago, and it's kind of all the same thing as this embedded business that I talked about at Dell. And that is putting computers in almost everything. And now there's chips in almost everything. And so I think we've all kind of expected this to explode, but I don't think it's different from most technology trends. Consumption model is a great other example. It takes a while to take hold. It takes a while for the industry to change. Probably the fastest transformation is really the one VMware that I've seen. That virtualization transformation was pretty darn fast. These are two areas where I think we're going to see much more excitement, enthusiasm, but it's hard. It's hard work. So what we've done is we've dabbled with a couple things. We've built some IP that helps us connect platforms it's a horizontal application, but it works to deliver computer vision solutions. It works in retail to deliver food safety. It works in healthcare environments to deliver better patient data, but we got to make them scalable. So we work a lot with many of our partners on this scalability question. And the other thing that I think we've learned is when you're talking to business units, you can't talk about horizontal solutions all the time. You have to understand what it's like to be a plant manager when you're talking to a manufacturing environment. I, of course, like that one because I was a plant manager at Cummins. You got to know what they care about. They care about safety. They care about throughput. They care about productivity. They care about quality. And so you got to be able to speak those languages. So I think we in the technology space have to figure out how to marry up these operating technology environments, which are vertical, and these IT environments, which can be horizontal. And then the magic will happen when we figure out how to do that at scale. And so we're investing in vertical expertise. We're testing a lot of different projects. We're trying to figure out how to turn POCs with speed into broader deployments. And we're trying to figure out how to repeat these solutions over and over again.
All part, again, of your mission to deliver outcomes and value to customers in a variety of ways that speak to themselves. As I get the opportunity to speak with your colleagues and other executives and longtime thought leaders in the industry, it's one thing that continues to emerge besides the vast complexity of the technology that everybody is dealing with and why they need the guide such as Insight to help move that along the way. But is also about how customers are shifting, particularly driven by, you mentioned, SaaS and consumption models changing as well. It seems as if customers are making a shift to think less about the building of the technology, particularly when they have great partners like Insight to help do it for them, and are thinking more about using it, applying it, and advancing that in just much more sophisticated ways. Does that match what you're seeing with your customers and as you look at the industry where we're going?
Absolutely. All clients are much more focused on the outcomes that they're trying to drive. Many of them still have a vested interest in a lot of curiosity about what technology should be used to deliver those outcomes. But we also have clients who say, I don't actually care. I just need this to be kind of the outcome that I expect. And they all are looking for cost optimization, of course, and they want to make sure that they're expecting any solution we build to be built with security in mind. I couldn't agree more with that shift that you're talking about.
And we hadn't even gotten into security, which continues to grow exponentially every day in terms of need, especially with everybody working from home. As you look at the shift to customers kind of thinking about outcomes more and how they can use it to apply their digital transformation, another growth area that we're seeing among partners is shifting and adding and building on managed services parts of their business. Again, as customers seem to be less interested in building it and running it themselves, I just want to use it. Can you help me do this? Do you also see that? And is that shaping Insight's plans for the future?
Absolutely. The outsourcing days where you sort of just take over somebody's stuff and try to make it cheaper. It's being replaced by much more automated, much better client experience, much lower cost, much more efficient managed services. And we are very, very focused on driving that. And that allows us to have it's basically abstracting the specific technology from the client discussions and just allowing us to figure out how to deliver that outcome that they're looking for. We'll make the sausage with the solutions. We'll figure out how to drive the right outcomes. But in order to do that really, really well, it requires some great communication with clients around what are they really trying to get done. And by the way, sometimes they don't actually know. We confuse sometimes, hey, my goal is to get to the cloud. Well, what does that mean? Like, what are you trying to do in the cloud? Or, hey, I need some IoT. Like, okay, well, let's talk about what you want to get done. What are you trying to make smarter? Or what are you trying to make better? And so I think our sales execs have a real responsibility to be that guide and play that role of being disciplined and being thoughtful about, if you're clear on your outcome, then here are some options to get there. And certainly managed services is one of the ways you can deliver that without our clients having to be so involved in the specific technology choices.
I've heard from other partners as well that exact need is also, frankly, creating the opportunity for them to offer new advisory services too. In terms of what is my multi-cloud strategy? How do I think about the security aspects to the solution? When should I be investing in my own application modernization, et cetera? Is that also part of the Insight portfolio?
Absolutely. So a lot of times, I think consulting services or assessments or figuring out how to sort of step back and understand the strategy that the customer is interested in deploying is the right first step. And then you can put together a roadmap to get them there. And that may or may not include managed services. It may or may not include products and technologies, but most times it's some combination of those things.
We've talked about advisory and consulting services. We've talked about managed services. We've talked about so many aspects of the technology landscape, from multi-cloud to investing in hybrid infrastructures to security to intelligent edge, application modernization, and you mentioned the word complex. For other partners in the industry who are also looking at this very dynamic landscape and a lot of changing business models and trying to think about how they want to navigate their growth and figure out where to choose, what advice would you give other partners who are sitting there looking at this dynamic change? And maybe they are a partner who's focused on reselling and maybe not so much some of these other areas. What advice would you share in terms of navigating how to consider taking advantage of all these opportunities to capitalize on for their growth?
I'm going to borrow some of the advice that I was giving to partners when I was in a different position at Dell. What I think is really powerful, if you think about intelligent edge solutions, or if you think about a hybrid data center transformation, it's rare that one partner can do everything. It starts by understanding, what are you really, really good at? And doubling down on that. And then I think there's enormous potential. I don't know what you think, Kathleen, about this, but I think there's enormous potential in partner to partner cooperation and collaboration, because we're never going to be as deep in maybe FinServ, banking, detailed trading expertise as some partners who focus only on that. And so to the extent we can help each other, and if you just start by saying we're going to bring the best value to clients every single day, going out and building sort of this peer-to-peer relationship, partner-to-partner capability, I think expands all of our capabilities more broadly. And, the market is $4 trillion globally, $4 trillion. And there's plenty of opportunity for many partners. But I think that if we could figure out how to work together with partners who have complementary skills, I think we'll deliver better solutions to clients. And then I would say pure resellers, I think we have to figure out how to offer more value than just reselling. I feel like we need to help our clients understand how to use the technology, get the outcomes that they're looking for. So I think if I'm a pure reseller, I think I would be looking at expanding my skill set.
That's great. I couldn't agree with you more around the peer-to-peer or partner-to-partner. It's something that we're seeing that need from a VMware side. We are looking at how we can help facilitate those relationships, particularly as you look across the complexity of our portfolio. We think about just anywhere workspace and all of the different components needed to be able to deliver a complete hybrid remote workforce that's from the edge to the cloud, that's managed, that's secure, And there are very few partners that have the expertise across that entire spectrum. Security alone is a very specific area. So ways that we can help partners partner up together, I think, to complement their skill sets is some value we're looking to be able to bring partners out in the channel. But we'll stay tuned for how we're working on that. I want to shift now, Joyce, to you and looking at, we've talked about your time, the different careers you've had. You are absolutely certainly very well respected and very effective leader in the technology industry for many years. Many leaders have been challenged over the last 18 months with just all the different various circumstances that we're having troubles keeping track of because it just continues. How was your leadership style challenged over the last 18 months? Is there any way in particular that you could change? Anything that had been your go-to style that you had to reconsider or shift as we've all lived through these unprecedented times over the last 18 months?
It's a great question. So first of all, I'm one of the people who basically changing jobs in the middle of this pandemic I don't think that would be like a best practice. I don't know. I think like so many people, you read the same stats I do, right? That are so many people are looking for something to change after so much sameness, I think. And so changing jobs in the middle of this was certainly challenging. And I would say my leadership style is really one that is around personal touch and effective communication and authentic accessibility and things like that. And that is so much harder on Zoom and Teams and whatever other platform we're using than being able to sit down with somebody and have a 15-minute conversation and look people in their eyes face to face. By the way, it's also, I don't know if you've had this impact, but since I've met so many new people because of joining Insight during this thing, most of whom I've met for months and months on Zoom or on Teams. And then I actually meet them in person and I think, wow, I didn't know you were that tall, or, oh, that is so different. So I think it's been harder to establish that really authentic, sort of close relationship without as much in-person interaction. So in some ways, you can get to more roundtables and you can get to more sites and that sort of thing. But it's just the quality of that for me has been lower. And that certainly is true for new clients and new partners as well. I've had to sort of figure out how to prepare better, try to figure out how to make that connection in a different way on Teams and Zoom. And that's usually by some goofy stuff, but I start every roundtable with, okay, you guys got to go around the room, introduce yourselves, say something about how long you've been here, and then say something that nobody else on this call knows about you. First of all, it's important for me so I can kind of try to peg a memory or an attribute to someone to have that connection. And then second, it's fun because people say crazy fun stuff. So
it's interesting that you share that observation of the challenge because the kind of the dichotomy of that is at the same time we're inviting people into our homes. You can see my home office. I don't have pets wandering across my desk, or kids in the background, but we've all been let into each other's very personal spaces. Sure. So it's been this weird mix of feeling more separate, but also very personal, intimate at the same time. I think there's a lot of hunger to get back to this in-person connection. How is Insight managing the return to work? Are you guys back up and running a little bit in face-to-face? Lots of companies are pulling back now, but they're evaluating, what are we? Are we all in work? Are we all remote? Are we hybrid? Where is Insight on that spectrum?
So in North America, we've had sort of two dates when we said, hey, we're going to return to the office in a more flexible way. And we now have no date because we keep just setting a date and then we don't get to do it. And I definitely think, obviously, like everybody, we're prioritizing the health and safety of our teammates. And that has been really fluid, which is why we've had to do some difficult things. We just made the announcement last week that we are canceling our Summit Club, which is our top sales trip. And it was heartbreaking for me because these people worked so hard to earn that distinction. And it was also a tremendous opportunity to actually spend some time with them. But it's the right thing to do because we were going someplace and we were going to Aruba and we decided we can't really do that. What if our teammates get COVID and they can't get back to their families or they have to quarantine there for 14 days? We're making some really hard choices all the time around this, like everybody else is. But I do think I have permanently changed this notion of how modern work will be undertaken. And I think it will be a more flexible environment for sure. We will definitely figure out how to collaborate more effectively. I think the technology, we have an obligation in this industry to make sure hybrid works better than it does today. I think making sure everybody's a first-class citizen in a meeting, whether they're hybrid or they're in the room, is something that we got to work on. I don't think its technology is perfectly there yet, but I know we're working on it. And I think it's going to be exciting when that happens, because I think that does open up lots and lots of different possibilities.
I love that. And we're wrestling with that as well in terms of the equity of having mixed environments. Once we start to, every time we've been trying to get back to VMware, we've had to pull back as well. But that is, I think, the new frontier, trying to figure out how we leverage, again, technology as a solution to create that equity in that hybrid workspace. All right, Joyce, I want to wrap up our conversation today with just a couple of fun, hopefully lighter questions to end on. First of all, what are you reading or listening to right now? I'm assuming that you're not traveling quite as much, a little bit more time close to home. So what are you reading to or listening to or binge watching on TV that's been something fun during this ongoing pandemic?
My most recent kind of work-related book is Adam Grant's book, Rethink, I think it's called, or Think Again. Yeah, and that's fabulous. It's a great book. I just started listening to Green Lights, which is Matthew McConaughey's kind of memoir. And we're listening to that on an audiobook when we drive places. It's fun because Matthew McConaughey is obviously a Texan and he's, I think, running for governor. So anyway, that's kind of interesting. And I've seen him a bunch at Dell events. So I've met him a couple times anyway. So that's fun. And then binge watching, I'm not that much of a binge watcher. We watched a lot of Schitt's Creek, which was very funny. And now my husband and I are watching Le Bureau. It's in French, actually. That's really fun. It's about basically the CIA of France.
Oh, that sounds great. We'll have to add that to my list. It's the way I get my best book reading options and show recommendations. Joyce, as you look forward to, we've talked about a lot of the different technology shifts and developments in the industry, but what technology do you think will be the most disruptive to our industry in the next 3 to 5 years?
It's not any single technology, but I do feel like this notion of intelligent edge, I think there's tons of predictions out there with people smarter than me who are talking about kind of the edge cloud being bigger than the public cloud is today. So I think we will see a whole bunch of processing at the edge. And I think that's going to be augmented by 5G infrastructure. And that's the most exciting.
And lastly, you've chosen to stay with partners, stay with the channel in your latest role. What excites you most about the future evolution of the channel?
I feel like the channel, and by the way, I have a very unique, I think, perspective on this because Dell is not really specifically the most focused for many, many years in the early days of Dell on the channel. So, but I think because of the complexity of the technologies, I feel like it's job security for the channel. Because who can possibly help sort of clients through these options and the complexity without having experts who do this every single day and who can translate that into real world speak for the mid-sized manufacturer or the retailer or the healthcare provider. I think the arc of technology spend is incredibly exciting. I don't see it slowing down in the next 5 years for sure, probably not 10, because of the value that it can create. And I think clients need a whole lot of help figuring out how to apply those technologies.
And Insight is certainly very well positioned to help support your clients with the amazing professionals you have, the great cultural values, and leaders like you to help drive into the next decade.
And Kathleen, I certainly think so. And it's my job to make sure everybody else thinks so too.
Well, Joyce, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute delight to talk to you, and I really appreciate the time.
And congratulations on this podcast series, Kathleen. It's very cool. And thank you for thinking of Insight. And we look forward to a great year with VMware.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Take care.
What a delight to have Joyce on this episode. I particularly enjoyed learning more about Insight's unique culture, built on a strong foundation, and how hunger, heart, and harmony are critical values that unify Insight to deliver amazing outcomes for their customers. We hope you enjoyed this great conversation too. To learn more about VMware, please visit vmware.com. To connect with Joyce, you can find her on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Joyce A. Mullen. Please subscribe, follow, and review VMware Partnership Perspectives podcast from your streaming platform of choice. For more information on VMware's partner programs, please visit Partner Executive Edge at vmware.com. I'm Kathleen Tandy. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.